to order. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Casey.
Present.
Spencer.
Present.
Bishop.
Here.
Gray. Harsh.
Here.
Kelly. Kalinsik. Mr. Chair, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Director, you want to come on up to the table, bring anybody with you who you see fit? We're going to go right in numeric order. Ordinance number 405, 2023 by council members Casey and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Utilities to enter into one or more contracts with Bantech, Inc. for system upgrades and hardware and software support and maintenance service for its payment scanner and payment processing systems for the Division of Utilities Fiscal Control, Department of Public Utilities for a period of 2 years. Director, this is a direct award because it's proprietary, I think, right? Correct?
That is correct, Chairman. Bantech equipment is used by the Department of Public Utilities Division of Fiscal Control. They are mail scanners to scan images of all sizes, payments, and supporting documentation for water pollution control, NEORSD, and CPP payments, including the licensing and the software upgrades. Chairman, I know you have toured, and I don't know if other, but the payment center at the Department of Public Utilities specific to fiscal control has a lot of very highly regulated equipment because we scan thousands of checks a day which go directly to various banking institutions. So there are a number of licenses, a number of proprietary equipment which is heavily regulated. Ours is Bantech, and we are seeking authority to continue that relationship.
And this is to make sure that we get the bills out in time and get them processed and receive the money and deposit it. Correct?
That's correct.
All right.
Receive the money, deposit it into the banks without making bank runs and things. I mean, it is highly digital and it's very specialized.
And you're right, I have been over there and toured it, and any member who hasn't should. It's kind of a cool operation that goes on. Any questions on 405, 2023? Seeing none, 405, 2023 stands approved. Please sign. Ordinance number 408, 2023 by council members Casey and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance determining the method of making the public improvement of constructing and installing replacement sewers and repairing and rehabilitating existing sewers and its sewer connections, relining sewers, and constructing and repairing catch basins and manholes at various locations throughout the city on an as-needed basis, and authorizing the Director of Public Utilities to enter into one or more public improvement requirement contracts for making of the improvement for a term of 1 or 2 years, and authorizing gifts, grants, and loans. Director?
Thank you, Chairman, members of the committee. So this is the sewer ordinance for the Division of Water Pollution Control, which includes emergency repairs when they come up, the rehabilitation and relining of sewers, and repairing sewer connections. On occasion, emergencies happen, especially in the world of utilities. This allows the Division of Water Pollution Control to utilize these various contracts to respond in a timely fashion and get the work completed. It will go out to bid. There are various contracts awarded under this ordinance. Historically, we do anticipate that to continue, and they do expire towards the end of and beginning of next year. So we would like to get this RFP on the street as soon as possible.
The current CSB participation is 30%?
Well, it would, Chairman.
That's the goal?
Yes. Well, there are 3 different contracts, as you'll see on the 3rd page of the executive summary. Overall, CSB participation is 30%, but there are various others that are listed to the far right. And unfortunately, because there is still a year left in several of these, the data isn't up as it will be at the end. We do work with them regularly to increase and maintain and live up to their obligations under the goals, and certainly that will be reflected in the bid package if allowed to do it.
And this is just for the city of Cleveland only? This isn't for outside the city of Cleveland?
That's correct, Chairman.
Okay. Any questions on 408, 2023? Seeing none, 408, 2023 stands approved. Please sign up. Ordinance number 428, 2023 by council members Casey and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Utilities to exercise the first option to renew contract number RC 2021-105 with W.A. Chester LLC to provide labor and materials to repair, replace, and maintain pipe-type cable system components. Director?
Thank you, Chairman, members of the committee. The Department of Cleveland Public Power, their primary source of power is 138,000 volts of electricity that run underground in pipes that is filled with oil. That's the pipe type cable infrastructure that we have. The maintenance of it, the repair of it is very specialized. It does not get de-energized. It happens while it is energized because it's the backbone of the system. W.H. Hester is a vendor essentially in the country maintaining and repairing these types of infrastructure, and we are looking to continue that relationship. We do anticipate, we budget it at $1 million. Thankfully, we have not come close to that, but we are allowed in the annual budget $1 million for this contract, and that is what we're seeking authority to do. I believe the last contract was around the same amount, and expended to date was around $200,000, but I can certainly have those numbers ironed out for you before finance.
All right, and then the minority participation, 11.4% with Cook. That's at Cook. It says Cook there, but we have Chester as the vendor.
Yes, W.H. Hester is who we're seeking to continue the relationship with. Their sub, when used, has been Cook Paving on a local basis,
All right.
which was the 11.4%. That's generally asphalt restoration, concrete restoration. This contract is for the maintenance of that infrastructure.
All right. Any questions on 4/28/2023? Seeing none, 4/28/2023 stands approved. Please sign up. Ordinance number 432/2023 by council members Casey and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the purchase by one or more requirement contracts of materials, equipment, supplies, and services needed to maintain, repair, or replace components of electrical, transmission, and distribution systems, including labor, for the Division of Cleveland Public Power, Department of Public Utilities for a period of 2 years. Director?
Thank you, Chairman, members of the committee. The Division of Cleveland Public Power is seeking authority to go out for RFP to have a contractor on standby in the event of a significant event which surpasses staffing for that event, either actually working or on call, available to come in and responds to the call. And we are seeking, similar to the Divisions of Water Pollution Control and the Division of Water, seeking that authority at this time. And I did provide, and I apologize, it was yesterday, there was a lot going on, just a brief synopsis. I believe it was to the Vice Chair's request, timeliness was off.
And you did send that over. We made sure that
Sorry.
that the copy was given out. Vice Chair Spencer?
Yes, thank you. I do have a few questions on this piece for the director.
Can the commissioner come to the table for this?
Yeah, that would be helpful. Thank you. I do have a few questions, Mr. Chair, on this particular piece. I acknowledge receipt of the brief summary that was provided yesterday. My first question through our chair would be, is this, just as a little bit of context setting again, this was held at last week's committee hearing because we had questions about, we did not want this requirements contract to in any way supplant existing CPP personnel, right? We did not want it to impede the ability of existing CPP personnel to have access to overtime or other hours that may be available to them. So that's kind of the heart of what the hold was from last week. So I do have a number of questions. The first one through the chair would be: is the need for this? Well, let me start in a different way. Is this the first time CPP has held such a requirements contract? Is this something that's been done in the past, or is this the first time?
Through the chairman to the council member, for this kind of range of activities, yes. However, we have a number of contracts that were awarded recently: tree trimming, rigging, switch gears, substation maintenance. There are millions and millions of dollars of contracts that support our daily operation. So I guess the breadth of this ordinance would be a first time, but certainly by no means the first time.
Mm-hmm. But this one, though, through the chair, has a particular, it sounds like this would be for, you in your comments, Director, you indicated this would be in the case of emergencies such as storms or other scenarios. This is not day-to-day operations. Can that be clarified?
Through the chairman to the council member, that's correct.
Okay. And then, so can there be so through the chair, can there be a specific guarantee that this requirements contract will not kick in until all CPP personnel have been given and declined the opportunity to use overtime hours or otherwise fulfill the need? If that question makes sense, and I hope it
Yeah,
does.
I'm fairly certain that council and our customers would, I mean, the cost of this through the chair to the council member is significant in an event of use, right? As with all of our contracts, requirements contracts, if you're deploying outside resources to an emergency, you pay substantially more. So the responsibilities that I have to the customers of Cleveland Public Power would prohibit me from using this where there are other opportunities to serve our customer.
I'm wondering, Mr. Chair, if some of that could be, I guess some of that is inherent to the definition of what a requirements contract is, but I wonder if we could look at including language to that effect in the, and unfortunately, I didn't come up with a language for a possible amendment prior to coming to the table today, but I'm kind of wondering whether it could be more explicit that this requirements contract would only be deployed in the event that all CPP personnel have been offered the opportunity to work the needed job and declined. Is that part of the practice of how CPP would run in case there were an emergency, in case there were a storm? How would the need be filled prior to this requirements contract?
Through the chairman of the council member with existing CPP staff, today and if passed.
So I'm wondering if we could consider making that somehow explicit, that CPP personnel would be given the first right of refusal, for lack of a better word, to fill needed shifts before the requirements contract would kick in.
If that's to me a question.
It's a question, it's kind of maybe
No,
if
I don't
anyone else
believe
wants
to the council members. Certainly, the overtime offering and how it's offered is collectively bargained, which it is in the union contract. So I would not. We would need the law department and the lawyers and the labor lawyers to look at it. I think if that's what you're talking about is available overtime.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
And my
offering,
assurance to you that it would not be impacted by this in the least.
Right.
I don't know how you memorialize that in a piece of legislation without it being bargained, which is prohibited at the table. So I'm uncomfortable with
an amendment being put forth.
well, no,
Yeah.
with talking about it with our legislative body. It's prohibited. I'm just not allowed to do it.
Do you have a point?
The chair, would it be possible, I think this is a $500,000 request, to review this in 1 year and see how it actually played out after the fact, to get a better understanding of how this proposal worked in reality, as sort of like a pilot almost. Try it, come back in 1 year, see what the review process was of this, and if it was needed and used, how was it deployed? I mean, how are the funds deployed? I can imagine a scenario where they don't need this at all. There'd be no big storm, nothing big happened, all the current workload was handled by the current employees, they didn't need any of this. But I could also see a scenario where a huge storm comes through and wipes out tons of power, and they have an emergency need to get tons and tons of people out there, and this gets used. And then we can review afterwards to see how it went.
I think, thanks, Councilman Harsh. I think another question, your point's well taken, Director, but another question through the chair would be, is there evidence, what is the evidence that indicates this requirement contract is necessary? Has there been difficulty filling shifts? What
Through the
is
chairman of the
prompting
council
this
member, yes.
requirements contract?
I mean,
Okay.
in all of your neighborhoods, there have been outages associated with hit poles on off hours or on the weekend. We need to serve our customers. This is a tool in the toolbox that we're seeking authority to do in the event that we do not have the required minimum staffing levels available to the customer, and we can minimize the outage to that customer. we would use this resource as any other resource afforded to us to get the customer back in service. That's as simple as I can make it.
Yeah, I would be interested to have Commissioner Danielson's feedback on this, and I know you still haven't, you're still fairly new in the role, but do you believe, through our chair, Commissioner, that this is necessary, that current CPP staffing, that the requirements contract is necessary because current CPP staffing may not be sufficient in the event of an abundance of hit polls or an emergency or other items?
Thank you. Through the chair, I certainly agree with the director that at no point would this be a preferred measure. I believe that if it is necessary, we need to have this in the toolbox. Over the next year, agree with Councilman Harsh as well. If we never use this contract, that would be ideal. At no point would we prefer to use this contract instead of our own employees. That is, they're ready, deployed, have access to our equipment. The only time where this would be a good option would be if our crews could not get to the problem in a reasonable amount of time.
Thank you. So, Councilman Harsh, to the question that you raised, this review that is kind of being discussed for a year from now or a year from when the contract goes into place, would it be both an analysis of whether CPP employees were offered the hours and whether the requirements contract kicked in? I mean, what level of, and again, I'm not sure what level of scrutiny council can really have. I'm unfortunately not an attorney, which is to everyone's disadvantage in this conversation because I cannot opine on this from a legal point of view.
I think through the chair to the councilwoman, I think what you would want is an accounting of the allocated amount, how it was spent for what contractor and for what purpose. And you'd have the dates, say contractor XYZ needed to go out to fix 20 poles on the weekend, and that was $150,000 of the $500,000. We could have an accounting of the money that was spent on which contractor to do which job. I think they would have the ability to be, through the chair to the director, you'd have the ability to say this money was spent on this project with this contractor or subcontractor at this date.
Through the chairman of the councilman, that's correct.
So I think through the chair to the councilman, I think that would be our review of this to see how it was spent, and if we're satisfied that CPP employees were available or not available at those times.
Mm-hmm. And I think my thank you, that's helpful, Councilman Harsh. My other question through the chair would be, was this discussed with this proposal, was it discussed with CPP personnel for their feedback on it? If not, so why or why not, if not?
Through the chairman to the council member, no. I mean, it's within our rights to serve our customers, as with all of the requirements contracts that we have. I mean, not to be dismissive, and it's such a small portion of it. It was not, and I don't see the value in it, personally.
The value would be employee morale and feeling that they are prioritized over an outside vendor. That would be the value.
On this, through the chairman of the council member, this $500,000 contract, or the other ones?
Well, probably. So I have a lot to learn, right? So right now we're talking about this specific contract, but it's possible that that sentiment could also extend to other contracts. But
okay.
But
Thank you.
we've approved those, right? So I have a question, I think, for our attorney. I think one option would be to move in the direction that Councilman Harsh has recommended. But my other question, I know that I don't have a firm command of labor negotiations and how they council's purview, but I think what I would really be wanting to go for would be this contract would only be not executed, the contract itself, but the expenditures would only occur if, in the event that no CPP personnel were available to fill needed shifts. Is that?
I think that's understandable.
Well, I'm curious. I don't know if the attorney can provide feedback on that.
Through the chair to the councilwoman, I'll have to defer to my colleagues who have the expertise into this, and I
I mean, I welcome other colleagues. I'm going to give thought, if Councilman Harsh wants to put forward his amendment, that's fine. I don't know if other colleagues have questions about the discussion.
Before we do that, Councilman Bishop?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman, to the director, can you first, can you give us a definitive answer about what is a requirement contracts and differentiate, and the difference between that and your other contracts that you issued or enter into in the Department of Public Utilities?
Through the chairman to the council members, so the big ones are the public improvement contracts when we are contracting with an entity to perform a task, an improvement to either the infrastructure or facility. And then the requirements contracts is the utility or the enterprise seeking contracts up to or specific to certain commodities or deliverables. So that entity would be available to perform those tasks for our customer at that price within this contractual obligation. So that's the requirements contracts portion. We're not hiring someone to build something or to do some type of improvement or a service. These are services that the administration has deemed are necessary for our customer, that if needed, we would have a vendor available to perform them.
Okay. All right. And through the chair to the director, just to kind of pivot a little bit, the substation in the southeast side, has that been upgraded? When the last time has that substation been upgraded to your knowledge?
Director, Commissioner?
Sorry, through the chair. It depends, I would say, on its current status. I do know we do preventive maintenance, and we do not replace something if it is not necessary or past its end of life.
So has there been any preventative maintenance performed at that substation?
Yes, it is. We do routine maintenance.
We'll just hold it again.
And would you say that maintenance is, would you deem that significant maintenance or just maintenance when stuff breaks down through the chair?
Through the chair, again, it is not just when things break down. Our priority is preventive. So we review the equipment and make sure that it is going to continue to work if we can confirm that it will.
Okay, through the chair, are there any scheduled maintenance projects for this particular substation? Do you have any plans to do any kind of maintenance on this in the near future?
I'm sorry, I don't have that in front of me right now.
You don't have that?
Through the chairman to the council member, if I could, so we did just present to council the facilities assessment, which included all of the substations, and I know a lot of that information was sensitive for public disclosure, but certainly we can give you a full report, detailed report on the condition of the substations that impact your community or any substations that you have. It's just, there is a lot of very sensitive information in those reports that are not for public consumption, but however, we'd be happy to share the specifics.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. And at this point, Director, we're going to hold 432, 2023. Moving along, ordinance 433, 2023, by council members Casey and Griffin, by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the purchase by one or more requirement contracts of labor and materials needed to clean high voltage insulators, brushing, lighting, arresters, transformers, and associated equipment at various locations for the Division of Cleveland Public Power, Department of Public Utilities for a period of 2 years. Director.
Thank you, Chairman, to the committee. Certainly the labor and materials necessary to clean the facilities that transmit electricity through our distribution system require maintenance and cleaning. This contract would allow us to go out to seek vendors to assist the staff of CPP to perform those necessary tasks. Thank you, Chairman.
All right, I have no questions. Any other questions on 433, 2023? Seeing none, 433, 2023 stands approved. Please sign up. 434, 2023. by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the purchase by one or more requirement contracts for materials, equipment, supplies, and services necessary to repair and maintain the decorative and special lighting of the Cleveland Bridges and the Wyland Whale Mural Park on North Marginal Road, including labor and insurances for the Division of Cleveland Public Power, Department of Public Utilities for a period of 2 years. Director?
Thank you, Chairman. I understand you're chuckling. This is work that CPP does not do on the bridges and on the decorative lighting side of our system. We do regularly seek a requirements contract to assist the staff of Cleveland Public Power in performance of these very unique and specialized work. The bridges are including the Main Avenue Bridge, the Willow Street Bridge, Center Street, Eagle, Bascule 1 and 2, and Conrail, along with the Wyland Whale Wall, seeking authority up to $500,000.
All right, any questions on 430? These are, Director, these are just for, and these are the bridges that we see downtown, right, lit up at night, and the whale wall on the north side of the Marginal, the old Cleveland, the old substation.
Chairman, that's correct.
All right. Any questions on 434, 2023?
Chairman, I'll offer an amendment.
Go ahead.
In Section 1, on line 5, after city bridges, insert and other bridges as deemed appropriate by the director.
To our law, did you get that? All right, do we have an amendment? Do we have a second? We have an amendment and a second. Any discussion?
I'd like to ask. Okay.
Any other discussions? Yes,
Okay, well, you said, what section is that?
section 1.
Section 1, line 5.
And the language of that, could you repeat that?
Through the chair, and other bridges as deemed appropriate by the director of utilities.
Lighting is for lighting.
So in essence, we would be servicing bridges that's not city-owned? Is that what I'm getting at?
Chairman of the council member, resurface, did you say
I
resurface?
mean, servicing.
No, this is just the lighting, Chairman to the council member, the lighting, the decorative lighting of these downtown bridges. Years ago, there was a tremendous amount of effort put into the lighting of the bridges in downtown Cleveland to increase the aesthetic effect. And included in that was the Wyland Whale Wall over here, CPP property, CPP being the only energy provider in the city of Cleveland. The contract rests with the Department of Public Utilities, Cleveland Public Power, but this is the maintenance and repair of the decorative lighting on specifically named bridges, and an amendment that was just offered by the committee.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right, any other discussion? Madam Clerk, will you call the roll on the amendment?
Casey?
Yes.
Spencer?
Yes.
Bishop?
Yes.
Harsh?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
580.
All right, 434, 2023, as amended, stands approved. Please sign up. (469, 2023) by council members Casey and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance determining the method of making public improvements of the demolition and removal of the existing security guard station at 12302 Kirby Avenue, installing a new security guard station and making site improvements, and authorizing the Director of Public Utilities to enter into one or more public improvement contracts for the making of the improvement. Director, the guard shack is not in good condition?
Chairman, that's correct. The guard shack is old and it is in bad shape. We have gone out for design a number of different times, and the prices have been significant to build new, to have something that's more suitable for the employees. It is the face of WPC, right? It's the first thing you see, and it looks bad. So and Commissioner Lowry would be here, but she is off this week. Seeking authority to do a prefabricated structure. We believe that within the dollars associated with the ordinance, we can find something certainly that is safe, warm, and dry, but not necessarily as nice as we would like, unfortunately. But we are seeking authority to improve it to a prefabricated structure.
Is 123,000 enough?
It will be, Chairman.
Okay. Kirby? It's 469.
Yeah, where's the dollar?
123,000.
What section?
It's in the summary.
Should that be in the ordinance?
Summary stands with, it goes along with the legislative
Oh.
record.
And
attached to it.
I learned that today.
Yeah, and it gives the fund number.
Oh.
So, all right, any other questions on 469-2023? Seeing none, 469-2023 stands approved. Please sign up. Ordinance number 471-2023 by council members Casey and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Utilities to enter into one or more requirement contracts of various types of fencing, gate operators, gates, vertical pivotal lift gates, barriers, walls, guardrails, including associated appurtenances, and labor and materials necessary to repair and maintain existing equipment and appurtenances, including installation, if necessary, at various facilities for the division of the Department of Public Utilities for a period of up to 2 years. Director?
Thank you, Chairman, members of the committee. The Department of Public Utilities has a lot of gates and fences, most of them with Commissioner Margavicius at Water, but Commissioner Danielson at CPP also with the substations and the facilities, more fencing than gates. However, they break, they get run into, a number of different things happen, so we are seeking the authority to go out for RFP for requirements contracts to repair, maintain, or install different types of fencing, gates, barriers, walls, and guardrails.
This is just going out for RFP, correct?
That's correct, Chairman.
Any questions on 471-2023? Seeing none, 471-2023 stands approved. Please sign up. Ordinance number 474-2023 by council members Casey and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the purchase by one or more requirement contracts for petroleum-based fuels for backup generators, including delivery and supporting services for the various divisions of the Department of Public Utilities for a period of 2 years. Director.
Thank you, Chairman. We do budget for it similar to the previous conversation with the W.A. Chester. We do have contracts, requirement contracts in place for fuel to energize the backup generators at various DPU facilities. As you can see, we budget approximately $1 million a year. However, the current contract, which expires in January, has expended approximately $155,000. We have a very up-to-date set of generators, backup power at the various departments and divisions of the Department of Public Utilities, which seek petroleum-based fuels. This would give us the opportunity to continue to purchase those fuels in the event of need, but also to maintain current testing and the requirements of the generators themselves require routine running and maintenance, which needs fuel. Chair.
And Director, in the summary here, you talk about power shaving. Can you just explain what power shaving is?
Yes, Chairman of the committee. So in certain circumstances in the grid, the greater grid of power, there will be times where either PJM or NERC or someone would call for peak shaving. Large power off-takers can then use alternative means to reduce the stress on the system at large. So in this case, obviously the generators were put together so we can continuously maintain delivery of the utility that we're delivering. But now there is additional opportunities to shave the peak. When there is a high demand day or instance, you will get notice where entities can reduce consumption of power from the grid when these pumps could potentially be utilized, as long as it's to the benefit of our customers.
And is there a certain time throughout the year that power shaving is more so asked for than other times?
It's typically in the summer,
It-
peak hot summer.
All right, that's what I was getting at. Any questions on 474, 2023? Seeing none, 474, 2023 stands approved. Please sign up. Director, according to me and my records, that is it for the Department of Public Utilities. Do you have anything else?
Chairman, I don't.
Any-
Legislatively, no, Chairman, thank you.
Anybody have anything for Director or our two commissioners? All right, thank you very much, Director, I appreciate it.
I guess I should, Chair. The Amnesty Council did give us the authority on Monday for the amnesty program. We have identified an early list. I hope to have a better list, and again, I will share with council everything I can. However, what we really need to talk about are those customer-specific information, right? And these are people who are suffering from the effects of the pandemic, and so I'll have better information to share hopefully by Monday with numbers and the communications that we are going to send. The conversation at Finance wanted to include local council members. I have to be very cognizant of customer communication and a public record. So I'm going to have a draft, I think, for council discussion, maybe not at the table, but for Monday. But I know your offices are getting the calls. I know our operation is getting the calls. It maintains those points that council gave me the authority to do. Residential account on a pay arrangement, and these dollars will be used to assist those customers maintain service. So I will hope by Monday, if these make it to Finance, I guess I can't assume anything, we'll be able to have some more talking points and more global idea of the impact of your ordinance.
All right, and then we're getting calls from specific residents asking, am I qualified? Do I get this, da-da-da-da? Is there one specific person you have over there that we can just forward this information to that could let us know yay or nay?
Yeah,
Back to these people?
Chairman, I mean, everybody, the call center, customer account services, billing, are all involved right now. The important thing to know is that when council passed the ordinance and the mayor signed it, the universe was identified. So they will be getting a direct communication from the Department of Public Utilities soon, either CPP or water. And if they don't get it, they're not eligible. There's no way to now become eligible, according to the ordinance. That as of the passage of that ordinance, the universe has been identified. Those are the individuals who are on pay arrangements who will then benefit from council's action on Monday. So I would encourage, and we get the calls, I get the calls, we've all gotten the calls. You're going to get something in the mail if you're eligible. There's no criteria, there's no boxes to check. The legislation was specific on passage. Those customers have been identified. Now it's our job collectively to identify those customers and begin the communication directly with our collective.
So if somebody calls, tell them to just be patient. You'll get a letter soon, right?
If you're eligible, you will receive a direct communication.
If you're eligible, you'll get the communication. And is that what the call center is telling them too?
Correct.
Okay, all right. And then you'll.
And 311, and, so
Okay.
we're trying to develop a true one-page script
Okay.
beyond what was in, because again, we didn't know what it was going to be until council passed it on Monday, and then the
Right.
mayor signed it. So we're going to develop a true communication strategy. However, the most important thing is, if you're eligible, you will receive direct communication.
Okay.
Several, because we need response in order to qualify for the ARPA funding.
Right.
So if we don't get it in a certain amount of time, we're going to continue to reach out.
Okay. And then will you just keep us informed?
Yes.
When the process is taking place, when you send the letters out with the first batch or whatever?
Yes.
So that we can anticipate and we'll send something out to the council to let them know how to respond to the questions.
Certainly.
All right? Sure, Councilwoman Spencer.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Could we just clarify the call, when you reference the call center, what number that would be in case people are calling it, just for my knowledge?
3130. 664-3130.
Okay, is the Department of Public Utilities?
Call center.
Call center,
Yeah.
3130.
And at the 311, I mean, everybody's
Right.
getting the calls.
There's going to be a
with-
single script. Just generally speaking, do we have a ballpark of when we anticipate letters will go out? I mean, are we talking?
Yeah, I mean, I would say within 10 days of us getting a true list,
Okay,
right? There's a number of different
so we do have to
things in
just
our
stay
billing
tuned.
system
Yeah.
that have to be, this is,
Right.
that we don't do this.
Yeah.
So that we are writing scripts, creating the computer stuff that Commissioner knows how to do that I don't, to whittle this information down to a true, accurate list that is reflective of the ordinance. Right? We have our customer base, we're limiting that to comply with the ordinance.
So I think what was already stated is really the point that there's no action residents can take. They will be notified. However,
There's an action they have to take once they're notified.
once they're notified, they have to take an action. However, maybe we just have to, I think the most prudent next step is to await your update on the letter. We would have a copy of the language of the letter, et cetera. My question would be certain residents who perceive that they should be eligible, if they don't receive a letter, what would our response be? But perhaps that's something that gets answered in process. But I imagine there are a number of residents,
yes.
right? Who think
Yes.
if they don't receive a letter, we'll also be receiving calls about that.
Yes.
Okay,
And at that point, we could turn them on to a payment plan if they're behind. So,
Yeah,
Okay.
and those are the individuals that we always encourage calling us. If you're having trouble paying your utility bill, call, right? And there's assistance available. But that doesn't have to do with the amnesty,
right,
the ordinance the council passed.
Right.
So we will continue to have the conversations that we always have with our customers, that if you're struggling to make ends meet, call. And our call center and our customer service professionals will work with you to maintain service.
okay. And in theory, if a customer were to call and say, how can I verify whether I'm on the list? Because listen, sometimes I'm even paranoid I don't get mail, right? My newsletters don't get delivered, other stuff happens, and I'm not always sure, my postal workers on vacation, you never know, right? So there will be folks who think, gosh, I didn't get a letter. Would there be the ability for them to verify whether they were on that list? I'm wondering.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I mean, we have a lot to learn, but yeah, thank you.
Anybody else have anything for the director or our commissioners? All right, thank you, director, thank you, commissioners.
Thank you, Chairman.
Director O'Keefe, you want to come on up? What's that? 3130.
Good afternoon, Chairman and committee members.
Good afternoon. Let me read the ordinance before we get started. Ordinance number 631, 2023, as amended by council members Casey and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the city of Cleveland to participate in the Sustainable Ohio Public Energy Council electric aggregation program to serve residential and small commercial customers for a period of 1 year, beginning with the August 2023 meter read cycle, with 2 one-year options to renew exercisable by the Director of Finance and/or Public Utilities. Let me read the amendments. There's no legal objection to the legislation if amended as follows. 1, in the title, line 5, after customers, insert, and authorizing the Director of Finance and/or Public Utilities to enter into 1 or more contracts with the Sustainable Ohio Public Energy Council to implement the electrical aggregation program. Number 2, in section 1, line 3, strike the SOPEC and insert SOPEX. And number 3, in section 2, line 3, after program, strike the period and insert for a period of 1 year, beginning with the August 2023 meter read cycle, with 2 one-year options to renew exercisable by the Director of Finance and/or Public Utilities. Before we get going, I want to talk about the amendment real quick. And is that amendment in the First Amendment? My question is going to be, should that be a separate piece of legislation?
For the First Amendment in the title, to the
Yeah.
chair.
To enter into one or more contracts with the Sustainable Ohio Public Energy Council, which is the,
SOPEC, that should be a capital S.
oh, okay, so,
Yeah, that's just,
all right, with the, okay, all right. Okay. Director,
good afternoon, Chairman and committee members. So, yep, this is seeking the authorization to establish the opt-out Community Choice Electric Aggregation Program for eligible non-CPP residential and small business electricity customers through the contracts with SOPEC, Sustainable Ohio Public Energy Council. This is a public service organization that manages opt-out governmental electric aggregation programs for 23 member communities. SOPEC was selected as the desired vendor after completion of a competitive RFP, and we can review a few details now in the slideshow that we have here, if you want to go
before we
forward.
get going, is there a representative from SOPEC here?
There's not a representative from SOPEC here. They will be part,
And the question is, why isn't somebody from SOPEC here? In years past, anytime this has come up, for the first contract, the vendor has always been at the table. So can you just let us know why SOPEC's not here today?
so to the chairman, we did not invite the vendor to present today. I wasn't, go ahead.
Through the
Defer to
chair, to
Arn.
we can certainly bring them in on the 22nd if that is another opportunity to hear at the Finance Committee.
Yeah.
Yeah, but do you know how busy that 22nd is going to be?
Finance.
Yeah, at Finance.
Okay. We have information, to the chair, we have all the information from SOPEC we can try to talk about.
Okay, so I'm
presentation.
just going to put it out there now. If we're going to ask questions about SOPEC, okay? And since you didn't have SOPEC here, if we're not comfortable with the answers that we're getting, I'm going to hold this legislation until we get those answers. And then that will be contingent on either you or SOPEC giving us the answers. I just want to be clear with that up front, okay? All right, go ahead, Director.
So I believe for the committee members at the table, everyone was here last week when we went through a couple of these slides, except for Councilman Slife. Want to go over these slides a little bit, Councilman, on what is community choice aggregation?
I'm aware of
So we don't need to, okay. All right, thank you. So just as a reminder, this is for non-CPP residential and small commercial customers, as I mentioned, and this is for the supply charge of the electricity bill. The vendor selection process for community choice aggregation was a competitive RFP process where the RFP was sent to 13 prospective different vendors who provide this service and advertised in the city's website. There was a robust RFP development, meaning the inclusion of pricing stability and transparency, the ability to respond to market volatility, level of customer service, clean energy adoption, so Cleveland can continue to lead by example, additional in-kind services at no cost, ability to absorb supplier switch and early termination fees, and additional. 3 proposals were received. These were all very strong proposals. Evaluation committee included 2 members of the Sustainability Office and the Department of Public Utilities. The responders were Energy Harbor, SOPEC, and NOPEC. Sustainable Ohio Public Energy Council, or SOPEC, came out ahead with the highest combined score in terms of functional capabilities, technical components, and pricing. This was determined as a team, again, Department of Public Utilities representatives and members of Sustainability Office. A high-level overview of the aggregation program highlights. This is, again, an active procurement, just as a reminder, so we can share these are the details from the SOPEC proposal that was selected. A 1-year stable price plus 2 one-year renewal options. Estimated pricing, 6.963 cents per kilowatt hour for supply with 100% renewable energy credits. That is the default option. There are 2 other options, 6.776 cents per kilowatt hour with 50% renewable energy credits. So that's 50% quote-unquote green energy. And then 6.588 cents per kilowatt hour for supply with 0 renewable energy credits. Across 12 months, this would be a net 1-year savings for residential and small commercial. Assuming that the resident stays with June and July and joins the aggregation program in August, that is a net savings for 1 year. Same price for all eligible residents and small business customers. This is held through the approved contract term. There are no early termination fees should a resident or small business decide they no longer want to be part of the program. And then we would absorb, this contract, SOPEC rather, would absorb the limited supplier switch fee. And we can go into that in a moment. In-kind community energy efficiency services for residents and small commercial customers are a part of the program. And because this is an active procurement, we are still negotiating the exact terms of those programs that I mentioned. In answer to last week's questions about communications plan for this program, we have some details here. We have a website that is updated regularly, at least on a weekly basis. If there's more recent information at a shorter time frame, then that will be updated. sustainablecleveland.org, community choice aggregation. We are creating a subpage for the plan of operations and governance and public hearings that will be held in the near future. I have more details on that in a moment. Between May 18th and 31st, we have social media notice hearings, notices posted to the city's homepage, a push on general education content about community choice aggregation, including newsletters, social media, flyers, and other visuals and explainers. Creation of a social media kit to be sent to City Council, CDCs, and CHN that provides the PIP program signups for residents who are 175% at the 175% federal poverty level or more. The plan of operation and governance notice will be published in the Plain Dealer May 20th, and then we have it slated for May 24th at currently. It says May 24th or 27th, but currently we have that slated for May 20th and May 24th. We are working with Deputy Clerk Alan Dreyer on that notification. Public questions accepted through a Google form ahead of time. We have that available and ready to go. The WebEx will be the day of and in person. We can accept questions about the plan of operation and governance. There will also be a 311 training on electric aggregation. Right now that's slated for May 24th to be scheduled. And then the week of May 29th, that is when the public hearings for the plan of operation and governance dates to be finalized. Right now, we have May 31st and June 1st for those public hearings on the plan of operation and governance. And SOPEC, the selected vendor, will be in attendance at those public hearings. June, we anticipate sending out a coming soon, look for this letter in the mail, kind of online updates and social media. July is when the actual mailing would go out to residents about the program details with the rates. And that will be sent via physical mailing to each one of the residents and small commercial customers of the non-CPP investor-owned utility. We'd also like to organize town halls of frequently asked questions with SOPEC, the selected vendor. The program would start in August. And after August, we would have potential opt-in options for those who opted out of the program. So just a summary of the timeline. May 10th, the vendor was selected. May 15th to June 5th, working in partnership with council to complete the authority to enter into the contract, conduct public hearings, adopt a plan of governance from SOPEC, and join SOPEC. July, residents and small businesses would receive the mailers, as I mentioned, and can respond with opt-out or do nothing, and that would be the auto-enroll. If they do nothing after receiving July's communication, they will be auto-enrolled into this program that has a net savings for a year. For opting out, they have a 21-day period to do so. In August, eligible customers who didn't opt out or started in the program will be sent these receive opt-in letters after September. Sorry, this should say September through December. In August, let me go back and correct. In August, eligible customers who did not opt out are automatically started in the program. September through December's customers that did opt out will receive what's called an opt-in letter, an opportunity to opt into the program at the same terms that were offered to those who were auto-enrolled. And then the next step here is joining SOPEC and approving SOPEC's plan of operations as discussed in last week's the committee hearing of May 11th. SOPEC's plan of operation and governance is joining or being a part of this plan of operations and governance will allow the city to not have to adopt its own plan of operations and governance at this time. There'll be public hearings, as I mentioned, and any feedback from public hearings can be incorporated into the contract amendments in the short term. Legislation introduction on May 22nd for this. The notices of public hearings, as I mentioned, will be May 20th and May 27th, and the public hearings are slated, as I said, from May 31st and June 1st on the plan of operation and governance. For the explanation of the plan of operation and governance from SOPEC, we will have hard copies in City Hall outside the library. The PD will have a print, that notice will have a print of the summary of the plan of operation and governance. And then the full version will be online on sustainablecleveland.org/community choice aggregation. And then questions will be collected ahead of time via an online form. We anticipate feedback will be used in the contract negotiation versus amending SOPEC's plan of operation and governance. So in this summary, I feel like I already summarized this, but aggregation is a tool that we can continue to be used for stable energy pricing for our citizens while also advancing sustainability goals desired by the community. We have done a competitive RFP and vendor selection along with the Department of Public Utility reviewers, a plan of operation and governance and public hearings in coordination with City Council over the next couple of weeks, and then communications I already reviewed. Legislation timeline, again, committee hearing today for the authority to enter into a contract, May 22nd anticipating a finance hearing, and then June 5th anticipating either in the committee of the whole finance and passage of the ordinance that evening. And estimated by June 15th, contract would be executed and then file opt-out letters with the PUCO. In early July, that's when the opt-out letters would be sent for August meter enrollment dates. So I'm just going to go back.
Is that it?
Yes.
All right. I have a number of questions. The first, we'll start with, what is the price going to be for our customers?
The price that we have and we are able to show today is an estimated price of 6.963 cents per kilowatt hours for the supply portion of the bill.
All right, so how can it be estimated?
I'm going to ask Assistant Director Anand Natarajan to answer that question.
Yes, through the chair. Thank you, Director. The reason is for the estimation is because we want to make sure that we understand the markets better. As we get closer to the contract execution, no vendor is willing to provide a final price a few months in advance because otherwise they have to add a lot of risk premium. So it'll be prudent for us to wait until during contract execution to finalize the price at that time.
When will they be able to finalize their price?
As Director, to the chair, as Director had pointed out, we estimate mid-June, provided we get council authority, to get the final price during contract execution the day of, and that'll be the day when the price will be locked. Yes.
So, an estimate, right?
It's a fairly close estimate to what we believe will be the final price for that term for the summer.
So, and here's my issue with the estimate, okay? SOPEC is the aggregator for Dayton, and starting in June, they're at 9.653%. They're also in the city of Athens, starting in June, is 10.057%. So if they can give an exact amount to those two cities, starting in June, why can't we get an exact amount here? And when I'm seeing rates 3 cents higher, 4 cents higher, how did they come about this estimate?
Through Through the chair, again, they know what the market pricing looks like and what the competition is. And so we got similar pricing from various vendors, but I think this is what we have for SOPEC. What they are able to do is now, when we asked all the proposers, none of the proposers said that this is the final price, because they would, otherwise the other option was they would add such a risk premium that it will be significantly higher than what we received as an estimate, right? So basically they would have to wait until they know when they can execute the price that is closer to the market. Yes, and they would have provided to other cities, as you pointed out. That means that they've added a significant risk premium, which we didn't want to take. We already know the prices are high, so.
Right. We know the prices. We know the prices are going to be high, but when you're coming to us with an estimate, okay, at 6.9, what happens if we give you the authority and all of us and you go with them, and then all of a sudden they come back and say, "Oops, it's going to be 9."
Through the chair again, we don't believe that will happen in this case, because again, the market pricing based on what we receive for pricing for the next month or two, it seems to be similar to that in terms of the volume. And the city of Cleveland has significantly more number of customers, and because we also know that they also are working in a competitive environment, we know what the other proposals have provided, and they are all comparable.
Did the other proposals come up
Yes.
with an exact number, or where there's an estimate as well?
Chairman, if I could,
Yep.
Director and Assistant Director. So indicative pricing is consistent with the energy markets. Both of the top two I do know had indicative pricing with a refresh. It is often beneficial to our customers, the indicative pricing, because then once we have the authority to execute, they can get the best price they can get, and we can execute the same day, right? And that's unique in the power industry. It's different than, but it is compliant with state procurement laws, which is unique, right? Because we know that this was the best price when reviewed by the reviewing team. We know that these options were the best at that moment, but at refresh, what ensures that it is? Well, it still has to be competitive. We know from historical perspectives that it has actually decreased because of the amount of load that our customers, non-CPP customers, residential and small commercial. I understand the hesitancy, but it's always been indicative pricing that we have been able. That's the only authority that we can ask from council at this point, because as the Assistant Director outlined, if we demanded a fixed price, they would have added the cushion, the buffer. I don't remember what the Assistant Director called it, but the word he used was accurate.
Premium.
That's the one. Thank you, Councilman.
To the Director, what did the RFP ask for? Did it ask for a specific number?
Through the chair, yes, the RFP did ask for a specific number, and we understood from all proposers, especially as the director had mentioned, this time around, since there is so much market volatility, nobody wants to price that much ahead of time unless they add that adder. So I think also, Director, thank you for using the right words in terms of that is the what is called as indicative pricing with the refresh. What that means is because of significant volatility, nobody is willing to do that months in ahead. Yes, we used to get those fixed prices in the previous aggregation iterations. That is because there was not much volatility as we're seeing today. And so that is the answer. So yes, we asked for a fixed price, which means we will not pass on any additional cost to the consumers, which is significantly important. When everybody proposed with the same level of certainty, right, they said that this is our indicative pricing as we submit the proposals, know that we can only hold it for a certain time, and we know our process, it takes much longer. So then they said, everybody said we will have to refresh the price if awarded based on the authority provided.
Did either of the other two people who submitted proposals give fixed prices?
Through the chair to the director, all three provided fixed prices, but all were indicative prices. That's what we're trying to clarify. The clarification is they were still fixed price, one price, but it is indicative at the time of the price provided when the proposals went out, with the caveat that they would be allowed to price refresh when the authority is provided.
Director?
I think, Chairman, if I could, just a moment, the fixed price that we seek, we as the administration and with the guidance of council, is that price does not fluctuate through that year, right? The fixed price is fixed. That does not fluctuate. There is no refresh after June. So everybody that submitted, to my understanding, offered that price. What our customer, what our constituent, First Energy customer can expect to pay for supply-side power must be fixed for the duration of the 1 year. So that's the fixed price, no doubt. Council has told us that. We know that. We want our residents to understand, have a better understanding of what their bill will be for the next 12 months. The refresh and the indicative pricing is before it's locked in, right? And all submissions called for a refresh. So we asked for a fixed, 3 provided a fixed, all 3 had a refresh, but once it's signed, it is fixed. And that's the important part that I believe for this conversation.
Okay. And then what happens, though, at the refresh? And when, let me ask this question first. When is, because June is when they go out to purchase the power, correct? For this contract, it'll be in June, correct?
Through the chair, yes, and because when
Okay.
we have a final contract execution, they would start preparing work, but when they have a final contract executed or about to execute, they would do what is called as a refresh, as Director pointed out, and finalize the price.
So let me ask this. So we sign the contract without knowing what the price is going to be, or when will we know what the refresh price is going to be?
Director King.
Chairman, yeah, that's the June, and nobody's going to sign it and
Yeah.
waiting on a refresh, right? So that June refresh that is reflected on the page of the PowerPoint is before contract execution.
Okay, and then what happens, I'm just saying, because we look at 2 other cities, what they got into, right? So there's a possibility that at the refresh, it could go down from 6.9, but what happens because the market's so unstable, it goes up to 10? Then what happens?
Through the chair and also to the director, we also keep an eye on the markets through our supply consultants, also CPP also has an understanding of what the markets are. We've seen what the markets look like. There was a lot of volatility then, but beyond the 1 year is where people are not able to predict. During this June, July, August time band, we've seen that the prices are very close to 7 cents. Could it be 6.9 versus 6.8 or 7.01? Yes, but that's the amount of variability that we're seeing, and within that band, as we see it. And we've been studying the markets, we've been looking at what the markets are. It's stabilized a lot more, but nobody knows beyond 2024. And the reason that we've clarified earlier too is because First Energy themselves don't know, and we don't want to go beyond a year. That is why we've also crafted this ordinance to provide us limited authority. So we have 1 year plus 1 year extensions as requested, so that we can keep watching the market beyond 2024. But we know, certainly based on the things that we've seen in the market, it's a very, very short band that it's going to swing. And to Director's point, we would absolutely get the price and then also be able to execute. Sometimes we can wait a day, half a day, and that makes a difference before we fully execute the price.
If it's higher, Chairman, we won't sign.
Yeah.
And then what do we do?
Well, either you're stuck on the tariff rate through to the chairman. I mean, obviously, history proves that indicative pricing with this amount of load, it going up significantly between now and June 15th, is unlikely. But there was a lot of unlikely in the energy markets over the last couple of years, right? But all of the projections are, you get through 2023, mid-2024, there's stabilization in the markets, and we could realize some pretty reasonable costs. But your concern, as is mine, as the person in the ordinance who would be asked to sign something, is that refresh in June. If it goes up to wherever the data you have, then we would have to do a true analysis, right? And determine what is in the best interest of our customer and what was the intention of this exercise. We RFP for a competitive, fixed price, fair for our customer. We have it here. We're recommending approval of this. If it's not, and the administration is asked to sign something, then a difficult decision would have to be made. But we know what the tariff rate is for the next year, or not year, 6 months.
6 months.
So I can only give you, again, you will know exactly when we sign, because these letters are going out to all of our residents, right? There is no gamesmanship in this. We are going to get a fair price at the refresh, hopefully execute a contract, and hopefully by August, I mean, have the supply side ironed out, Chairman.
Thank you.
All right. And I believe when I read the RFP, there's added value added through grants or in addition to the aggregation rate. Is SOPEC willing to do any value-added components to this contract? You know what I'm
do.
talking about.
Sure. To the chair, the value add that was in the RFP, and I'm going to ask Assistant Director to correct me if I'm incorrect, is the in-kind energy efficiency programming for residents and small businesses.
Through the chair to the director, that is correct. Again, we have a choice when we are executing the final contract. SOPEC has a slew of services. Again, we have been very clear, we will not take any monetary grants at all. If it's anything, it's in-kind services to the community. We want to benefit the community through these aggregation programs. And there are a whole host of programs. We are trying to hone in on reducing the energy burden for our customers. That's the primary purpose, which means doing energy efficiency type services through this program.
All right, so SOPEC will not be offering community grants in any way?
SOPEC, to the director, to the chair, will not be offering a dollar type grants, but it could be in-kind services that are offered, such as energy efficiency upgrades, going to homes and looking at the energy usage and trying to provide suggestions or even doing some work in some homes in order to improve the comfort and lower the energy costs.
Correct.
All right. How many other communities in Northeast Ohio does SOPEC service?
Through the chair to the director, 26 so far. If we
In Northeast Ohio?
Not in Northeast Ohio, in the entire Ohio, because they produce. I don't have an accurate count for Northeast Ohio. I can look it up, but in the state of Ohio, they have 26 so far. Director.
26 communities?
26 communities in the state of Ohio. Chair, yes.
But make no mistake about it, we'll be their biggest customer, correct?
Through the chair, yes, that will be accurate. The next largest is Dayton. So.
Is SOPEC, and when I went on and saw the communities they're very small communities, right? Is SOPEC going to be able to handle the size of Cleveland?
To the chair, in terms of the being able to supply the energy itself.
Yeah, and
Okay.
everything, yeah.
So to the chair, the SOPEC, the aggregator itself has the aggregation part of the business, but is partnering with AEP, I believe. Is that correct? For the energy supply.
Is AEP the same AEP that was involved in the scandal with First Energy downstate with the with the generation? Yeah.
Through
That
the
same AEP?
No, thank you, Director. To the chair, AEP Energy is the deregulated business that just sells and supplies electricity. And AEP Energy has been providing electricity also to other cities in the state. And so the AEP Energy is your retail electric supplier. It's not the AEP as your wires company, similar to First Energy. So SOPEC has historically been combining as you need as supplier, because SOPEC doesn't have the electrons themselves. So to the chair, this is AEP Energy that is providing the electricity supply.
So we know that AEP is selling off some of their divisions, right? You know that. And I just don't want to get into a situation where they're going to end up competing with SOPEC, or they're going to pull off from SOPEC, and then SOPEC's going to be left, in the wind. And that's, so in essential, because I know that relationship is close, I don't want to be reliant on a third party.
Through the chair to the director, again, two clarification, and that's a very valid point. I would acknowledge that. So the way that these government aggregators work, which we had explained last week too, is SOPEC is our government aggregator, providing the customer service, making sure that all the opt-out notices are going out. However, they don't have the assets to provide the electricity, and that is AEP Energy. Yes, AEP Energy itself has already been spun off separately to be deregulated, And so at least for the 2.5 years, and this has been evaluated thoroughly by a robust evaluation team on the administration, those questions did come up, but we feel fairly confident, at least for the next 2.5 years, that we don't perceive any additional challenges to this model that we have with place in SOPEC and AEP Energy.
I just don't want to be getting in bed with somebody who's involved in the corruption downstate. I just personally want to put that out there. You don't have to respond to that. Say 26 communities, you don't know how many customers they provide, do you?
Through the chair, I can look it up and provide. In terms of total numbers, I know the city of Dayton and city of Athens are the largest ones, and I don't know if I have an accurate count of the total customers, but I'm pretty sure we can find that out, Chair.
Yeah, we can get that to you.
All right, and SOPEC offers sustainable product, correct? A non-sustainable product?
Correct. So
Right.
there are 3 options.
So how does, obviously with the non-renewable, with 0% renewable, how does a customer get the opportunity to choose whether they want to go with 100% renewable, 50%, or 0%?
Through the chair, that's a very good question. We did something similar last year. What we will do is, this is where our customization of the program comes in handy, because we will be asking SOPEC in the opt-out letters to make it very clear and follow up, communications too, that these are the choices that a customer for the city of Cleveland would have through this program. What we're trying to do is minimize it to 3 options, Chair. One is the default, which is 100% renewable energy credits. The second is 50%, and the third one is 0%. So if somebody is price conscious and doesn't care 2 hoots about RECs, they can choose the lower price, which is about 6.5, even more competitive. We will make it absolutely clear always, and it's called what is called as opt-down. You have an opt-out, you have an opt-in. This is an opt-down program that we've historically provided.
Is that a separate letter, or does that come in the opt-out letter?
Through the chair, it's in the same letter. All the options will be made available on the letter, and always consistently at the call center and the website. So every customer is aware. They can always, and we will make it sure that SOPEC does this if awarded, that they have always, a customer has a choice to opt down or opt up to be, if they're price sensitive.
And then are they automatically opted into the 100% renewable?
Through the chair, that is what we are proposing as a default, to be 100% renewable energy credits. That has been one factor with SOPEC. Just starting from that program, they've always been default providing 100% renewable energy credits at a competitive price.
So just to add on to that response, in the history of the Community Choice Aggregation Program has been able to achieve 13% in addition to what is available through CPP in their renewable energy portfolio. We have been able to provide, through Community Choice Aggregation, up to 13% of renewable energy for the city of Cleveland through this program. Otherwise, there isn't any. That's why we're seeking that as the default. And that goal is informed by the community.
All right, and then I have 2 more questions before I turn it over. In doing some research on SOPEC, their last annual report was in 2020. Do you know if they've put out any other annual report since 2020?
We can get that information for you.
All right, and then they had an audit in 2018. They only had a balance of $206,000. Can you see? And that was part of the audit. And then my last question is, do you know how many number of employees SOPEC has?
Number of employees. Okay, so number of employees, public audit, and the report. We can get that information for you.
All right.
And I'm going to see if I can provide anything now.
All right. At this time, I'm going to open it up to my colleagues. I'll start with Vice Chair, Councilwoman Spencer.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I'm going to start with some questions, and then I think I'll likely want to go back on the list as well after other colleagues have had a chance to speak. I need to go a little bit. You were working on this, Chairman Casey, with your questions, but I think I need a little bit more of an understanding of this renewables conversation. So
Sure.
the slide that we just saw referenced something about 100%.
Oh, sorry, let me go back to that.
Yes, I apologize through the chair, but I wanted to understand what that sentence meant.
Sure.
100% renewable since 2013.
So that meaning that our program has been a 100% renewable energy credit opt-out. That's the default for our community choice aggregation program since 2013, since we've had the community choice aggregation program in Cleveland, in the city of Cleveland. It has been, the opt-out default option has been 100% renewable energy through renewable energy credits. And that is helping us to achieve, the city of Cleveland, to achieve what's called EPA Green Power Partnership certification.
Okay, I'm still not sure I'm quite there, but let me, this is not everyday language for Cleveland City Council members, so we're learning here. The slides aren't numbered. I think it might be slide number 5, the one that has aggregation
Pricing?
program. Yes, the pricing. So can we explain again through the chair what this really means? I think the line of questioning about the 6.963 cents per kilowatt hour was really important in terms of understanding the volatility, the risk premium, indicative pricing. We had that conversation. I'm not sure if I understand the other pricing here and what this means. There's 3 different prices listed here under estimated pricing.
Sure, through the chair to the council member. The default pricing that is the top line that indicates 6.963 cents per kilowatt hour for the supply. And that price includes what's called renewable energy credits. So all of the energy supply that you would get with that price as a customer would be considered renewable energy. And that comes through something called renewable energy credits. Renewable energy credits is a mechanism that basically you take an electron that was made from wind or from solar or other renewable sources, and you separate the green attributes, the renewable attributes of that electron, and the actual electron flowing through the wires. And then renewable energy credits can be purchased by an energy supplier to what's called green the electrons coming through the wires. I don't know if I explained that quite right, quite so that it's understood, but I can go a little bit deeper if you'd like.
No, so I think then why is other pricing being shown here through the chair?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, we wanted to make sure we had options for community members who have more price sensitivity and for whom the renewable energy is not a priority perhaps or desired. So we have 2 other options here, that 50% of the energy would be renewable at a lower cost, and then you would have none of the energy being renewable. It would just be the energy coming through the lines without that added benefit, without that added attribute, I should say, of being renewable through renewable energy credits.
Okay, so through the chair, the 6.963 cents, which right now is only estimated because we don't have the contract locked in, that is what is called considered to be the default pricing?
That's correct.
And so from a customer's point of view, I've always understood this to be kind of a binary choice, opt-in or opt-out, right? So what I'm not clear about is, from a user point of view, if a customer wished to stay with our community choice aggregation program, but wish to avail themselves of a lower cent per kilowatt hour, how would that occur through the chair? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Chair, if I could,
Yes, go ahead.
Director. So as a First Energy customer in the city of Cleveland, I would get the letter. If I throw it away, default, right? So I don't opt out, I don't pick something else, I will have 100% REC, renewable energy credit power at the price. If I opt out, I'm back to whatever else I was doing. If I pick the 50%, I'm there, 0, I'm there, right? So that's the motivated customer. If I were a motivated customer and I read it, I would respond to the preferred vendor under contract and say, I want this at this price for the next 12 months. So if I do nothing, you default to 100% REC, as we have since 2013. I can pick one of those other 2, or I can opt out.
Right. And all 3 are through SOPEC, through the chair.
The selected vendor under contract.
Right, if
That's
we enter
correct.
into a contract, if we vote to move forward and enter into a contract with SOPEC. So the letter would essentially say, Okay, so so there's three choices. This is actually fascinating, so let me roll with this for a second. So you receive the letter, there are three choices. The three choices are, one, throw it away and you're enrolled in the default rate and it's 100% renewable credit, whatever. Two is, you keep the letter, you read it, but you want a lower kilowatt hour price, and so you contact somebody, as indicated on the letter, to get that pricing. And the third is you contact whomever indicates on the letter to opt out entirely. Is that accurate?
Through the chair, that is correct.
Okay, did not know this until now.
And if I could, Chairman, to the council member, all of those communications will be outlined at the public meetings. Like, the director will have drafts of all of the communications once we have authority to continue the negotiations, engage with this preferred selected vendor. Those letters will be provided to council and constituents. And again, this is
Right. And then,
we're in it
yep.
together.
Yep, so that's a good point from Chairman is, who would this letter be issued by? Who does the letter come from?
So through the chair to the council member, it would come from the aggregator, so it would come from SOPEC in July, the physical letter. We, in the city administration in June, would have communications that keep an eye out for this letter in the mail that's coming for it to you.
Through the chair, what would be the purpose of the keep an eye out for the letter?
Just as an added, through the chair to the council member, just as an added communication on social media that it's coming your way, that the details about the program are coming your way in a letter.
I'm going to want
That's
to,
good.
I think I'm going to want to go back on the list, Mr. Chair, on the communications side of this conversation. Right now, I'm trying to stay on the pricing side of the conversation.
Gotcha.
Now that we're a week later, we know who the recommended vendor is, and so right now we're trying to delve into the pricing piece. I want to come back to the communication piece. So Director made a comment so in selecting this vendor, our utilities director made a comment that in selecting this vendor that SOPEC offered the best price. And I know in one of the earlier slides it indicated there were several factors or considerations in scoring. Let's see. Oh, yes.
Second bullet
Highest
point.
combined score included functional capabilities, technical components, and pricing. So pricing was not the only driving factor. Are we, as a council, able to understand, was this the best pricing, or what can we learn today about, again, how Cleveland residents are, this is definitely will impact people's household budgets, their pocketbooks. So what can we understand about was this the lowest price, or did other factors outweigh pricing alone when selecting this vendor?
I didn't
So, go ahead.
Through the chair, through the chair to the council person, this was the best pricing among. Wasn't necessarily the lowest, but it was fairly close. So I think we also looked at whether this price can be held stable for a year without any other fluctuations, right? And also there were additional prices provided beyond year 1 and year 2. So we looked at the pricing that was the most competitive, yes, and there was also the lowest. But also, in addition, the fact that we knew that overall we'll get the best quality in terms of the additional in-kind services and the renewable energy credits and everything else from that perspective were factors. So there were various factors besides just the price. And the price transparency was also important. So it is not opaque. We know what we're going to get into, at least for the next year.
I'm going to hold, Mr. Chair, on my further questions until a little bit later in the discussion. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilman Slide.
Thank you for letting me sit in this thing out.
I don't think so.
They're trying to silence me.
Thank you for letting me sit in, Councilman Casey. I'm not on the committee, but we both represent a part of town where First Energy is the only option, so I've understandably been getting a lot of calls about this. I apologize for being unable to make it last week, but I unfortunately am familiar with electric aggregation, and I'm of the opinion that these market-driven, deregulated electric markets serve more confusion than cost savings in many cases, but that's another conversation. I think at the end of the day, my customers are less interested in sort of the ins and outs of the SOPEC contract itself, and are more feeling a lot of anxiety over the June and July term where they will be where the provider will be First Energy with the increased rates. So I want to focus on that, talk about a little bit of historic numbers, and then make sure I understand the process of using Apple's website and getting defaulted back to a lower rate if people go that route. So I brought with me my electric bills, which for some reason are printed on legal paper. But I remember it must have been last July when my son found the thermostat, because our electric bill was $212. But looking at that, that's at a 12-cent per kilowatt hour rate. And if I look back at my previous bills prior to that, it went from 9 cents in the June bill to 10 cents in the July bill, up to 12 cents in the August bill, and then it dropped down to 6 cents in September. So to make sure that I understand, because I want to make sure people understand how to peg for this year relative to last year, last year is when the rates were increasing. September is when we got out of the NOPEC contract, defaulted back down to First Energy, and that's what brought down the kilowatt hour charge. Is that correct?
Through the chair to the council member, yes, that is correct.
Okay, so I start there because, you know, with the electric bills being so high at that 12-cent per kilowatt hour rate last year, I think there's a fear that when we hear that the rates are doubling, and we remember that we had a $200 plus electric bill, the anxiety is that we're now going to have a $400 electric bill. But is it more accurate to suggest that if we're going from the current rate up to 12.4 cents, I think it is, that the do-nothing option of going back to First Energy as the provider does increase bills for those customers and does put it north of last summer's bills, but not too far north of last summer's bills at 12.4 cents. Is that a correct way to characterize it to consumers who are understandably worried that, you know, I monitor the thermostat, so I think people are worried they're going to have like a $500 electric bill next or in a couple months?
Director?
So through the chair to the council member, the June and July 2023 rates are published by First Energy, and they have been published around 12 cents for supply. The program that we are proposing, yes, would not happen until August, and that's when the decrease in that supply price would occur. I think that's all I can comment on at the moment. Unless you want to add.
Yeah, if I can, through the chairman to the council member, yes, you're accurate. The 12-cent supply side last year in July was when we did have a community aggregator, but not fixed, and it was around 12 cents. It had escalated to that. So your statement is accurate.
Okay.
We paid, because of the fluctuations last year and us not being in a fixed contract, which is why we elected to opt out, to give notice of separation from our previous aggregator. So all of your statement is correct. And then as the added bonus of Director O'Keefe is that's why we are demanding a fixed charge for 12 months.
Okay. That's helpful because like I said, I think people are worried about this year's bill versus last year's bill, and we all can do what we can to conserve, but we all, you know, can't have our kids and our parents and everything in a 90-degree house. So I guess my question then from there is, like you and not having seen the numbers at that point, I was also advising residents that the safest bet was to absorb the 2 months of the 12-cent rate, knowing that it'll be defaulted down, it will be fixed over the term, and there's cost savings in the end. However, when I do go on the Apples to Apples site, there are some zero cancellation fee, short-term contracts, fixed rates that are around 6-7 cents an hour. So I guess the thought is, and I want to just make sure that if people, this is what people are trying to figure out, so I want to make sure that we're counseling them with the full information and not just with the most conservative, little c conservative option. If I were to enter into a contract with one of these providers and bring it down to 6.5 cents for this 2-month period with a zero if this would be an 8-month contract, $0 cancellation fee at 6.5 cents. My numbers based off my August bill is I would save $66 per month over those 2 months, which is not an insignificant amount of money. So what I want to understand is, and just for everyone listening online, one of the reasons that we are advised caution when it comes to shopping on the private market is because many of these providers give you a fixed rate for a year, and then after the year, it goes month to month and variable. Right. So it's good for the year, there's zero cancellation fee, but if you don't put the reminder in your calendar, then you're potentially going on a roller coaster until you realize that you're on the ride. So so this is a strategy, but it is one that needs to be done thoughtfully and putting a reminder on your calendar so you know that you have to cancel at some time. But the question is, if I were to do that, enter into a 6.5 cent 8-month fixed contract and cancel it after 2 months, is there a process to go through to now enter the SOPEC aggregation program, or am I defaulted back to First Energy as the provider? Am I able to enter upon cancellation, or is it only a one-time join?
So through the chairman to the council member, yes, there will be what's called an opt-in opportunity for anyone who does as you outlined, joins another contract, gets their own supplier with a zero cancellation fee in this scenario that you've outlined. Then we would have an opt-in communication to anyone who hasn't automatically been enrolled in our program. There would be a communication for opting in. Go ahead. Any further
Thank you,
details?
and to the chair or vice chair, to the director, and yes, that certainly we will be. And we will ensure also that we will do continuous, what is called as mailer refreshes, to ensure that people who don't have a supplier can be picked up. However, as you had rightly pointed out, the timing is important, right? And so certainly people need to be also aware with their supplier contract, because normally they are asked to wait 1 or 2 billing cycles before they can join an aggregation program. So we would also keep mentioning that just be aware when your contract or when you need to come out, that you can certainly call the call center that will be established to opt in, but there may be a 1 month or 2 month waiting period depending on when they call in. Now, to your other question about what else can we do, we are working with the vendor to be able to provide at a limited supplier, if there is a supplier early termination fee. We are also offering through this vendor a program so that we can offer to a limited number of customers $25 or $50, whatever that may be. We need to finalize that so that it at least eases the burden of somebody wanting to come into our program.
So, and just to add to that, through the vice chair to the council member, so if somebody has already, for example, looked at a contract and they didn't see that it had a cancellation fee on it, and they had a cancellation fee in order to come into our program and do the opt-in, we're seeking to have a fund with our selected vendor to mitigate that.
Okay, so thank you. And one of the assistant director's points I think is worth repeating and making sure that I fully understand. So in this scenario where I see an opportunity to save over 2 months $172.02 by going into this private provider, and then I cancel it after 2 months. Are you saying that there's a likely scenario in which now, so this is no longer an opt-out program for me to get into SOPEC aggregation, now it's an opt-in program for me to enter the city's aggregation program, is that correct? First question.
To the chair, yeah, go.
Directors, yeah. A lot of this is outlined in the Plan of Operations and Governance, which is not yet negotiated or outlined or approved. So we have to just be cognizant of the Ohio Revised Code. But yes, our intention as the people who will ultimately enter into this engagement, there will be an opportunity for someone who has entered into a separate supply side engagement to opt out of that and into what we are recommending for our residents.
Got you. However, if it's not instantaneous, if there's a 2-month delay, so I cancel, and on the same day I opt in to SOPEC, but there's basically a 2-month processing period or whatever you would call it. Over those 2 months, I am now receiving my electricity from the First Energy provider at the 12 cent a kilowatt hour rate. And essentially my efforts to save $172 have been now thwarted potentially by having 2 months where I'm back at First Energy.
So through the chair to the council member, that is, as Director Kane stated, that is our intention to make that as seamless as possible.
Sure.
But we have not negotiated the contract yet. We don't have so those would be what we'd be looking to do. Decrease that as much as possible.
Okay, I think for me, this is one of those scenarios where, I'm not an attorney, so when people ask me advice, I'm like, well, I'm not an attorney, so like, take this for what it is, but I can't give you a solid legal opinion on something that I'm not an expert on. Similarly, I just want to make sure that I'm laying out all the different paths at the top of the mountain for people who call my office, and I mean, to my colleagues, kind of the hedging the bet thing there is, potentially there's a month or two on the other side of a cancellation where you're back at the First Energy rate, but are you now into September and October where you're less likely to be pumping the AC and maybe those rates? So there's just so many things to consider that I want to make sure that we are acknowledging that there's a lot of things to consider, and I know that I'm thinking aloud and I apologize for that, but I don't want residents of the city of Cleveland who have been focused on this to think that we aren't acknowledging that there's different paths, and but I also want them to hear me say, I can't advise you definitively on which one's going to save you the most money, if at all, down the road. So that's helpful for me. Thank you for letting me sit in, Councilman Casey.
You're welcome. Thank you.
From SOPEC?
You're welcome. Thank you. Have anything to respond to that?
No, we had a couple of answers to the questions you asked previously, Chair. If you'd like them, or we can provide them after the questions. Okay.
Councilman Bishop.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do believe Slave had kind of had the same line of question as I had. In the interim period when the customers are going to trying to get the best deal at another supplier, and then all of a sudden our program kicks in, they won't be on the hook for a switch fee, is what I'm hearing, right? They'll absorb the switch fee, the SOPEC will, right?
So through the chair to the council member, that is our intention. We do not have the contract yet, but that is our intention to
Okay, so it's
negotiate that.
not
Correct.
yet outlined, is
So
what you're saying.
yes, and through the chair to the council member, one of the things that we advise, that's why we are advising for waiting until the program is available.
Okay. All right. And another question I had that I particularly could not answer accurately when a customer called my office the other day is that, all these rates, they're talking about all of these rates that's going up on the news, and she was worried about just going over her budget, and she was a CPP customer. She was like, a CPP going to increase with the regular market? And I said it could be, and through the chair, to the director, would that be through the energy adjustment charge? It would kind of increase when the rates increase in July?
Through the chairman to the council member, there is no planned increase in July. CPP is not as heavily affected by the open market as the PUCO investor-owned utilities. CPP has generation assets for long-term in many instances, so those fluctuations do not affect. But if there were, it would be reflected in the EAC, but we don't anticipate it at all. I mean, the dramatic increases in the First Energy customers' expected bill will not be the same as the CPP's.
Okay.
And
So-
this program does not affect CPP customers.
Right, I understand that. So I can actually tell her, listen, if your energy adjustment charge is $100 average a month, it should stay at $100.
Yes.
It wouldn't go up to
EAC
$150.
has not been, it's been amended twice in the last 3 years.
Okay.
It's a fixed charge based on consumption. So
Okay.
the number's right there on the bill. The
Right.
EAC point, I don't remember it, but that's a fixed charge, and it has not, like I said, it's only gone up once, down twice in the last 3-4 years. So,
Okay. All
yes,
right.
you're accurate. You're
Okay,
accurate.
all right, thank you,
Sorry.
Mr. Chairman.
Is that it? All right, thank you. Councilman Harsh.
Oh, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So through the chair to the director, what was the lowest price indicated in response to the RFP?
So through the chair to the council member, we're in active procurement. I'm not sure that I can share that at this moment, but happy to share that after.
Through the chair to the director, the SOPEC price indicated was 6.9, 6.7, or 6.5 cents per kilowatt hour. And you can tell me that. Through the chair to the director, why can't you tell me what the other offers were?
Through the chair, I think we would like to defer to law because we've been told that it's an active procurement. There are other information, other proposals are provided that is normally held confidential until the contracting process is fully completed or they need something to redact. We've not had an opportunity to do that yet. So we're going through an active procurement. We are obviously sharing what SOPEC has provided because we want our residents to know what we would expect to get into the selected vendor.
Through the chair to the director, why didn't we go with the lowest price?
Okay. To the chair, could you repeat that question again? Sorry.
Why didn't we go with the lowest price?
Through the chair, we would like to respond that for year one, yes, SOPEC indeed did come up with the lowest price. But as the director had pointed out, it is indicative. And even with that indicative pricing, we looked at the pricing, and SOPEC's price for year one, which we felt more comfortable, is the lowest.
Through the chair to the director, or assistant director, I thought somebody said earlier that SOPEC's price was not the lowest.
Through the director, to the chair, to the councilman, if you take more than 1 year or 2 years term, because we were also asking for pricing just to see what the market is for a 2 year or a 3 year. Had we had done like a longer term, then SOPEC's pricing at that time for year 2 and year 3 inclusive was not coming out to be the lowest overall. And so because there was so much volatility, we as a team,
So,
this,
I'm
yeah,
sorry, excuse
yeah.
me. So through the chair to the director, so what you're saying is for a 1-year contract, SOPEC was the lowest price offered?
Through the chair to the council person, yes, that is accurate.
Correct.
Yeah.
So through the chair to the director, assistant director, the decision to make a second or third year is a decision that we will make later, like next year, I would presume, correct?
Yes, through the chair to the council person, yes. We will be
Correct.
continuously watching the markets, and that's why we want to exercise only a 1
Through
year.
the chair to the assistant director, then,
Yeah.
for a 2 or 3 year period, was SOPEC also the lowest price offered?
For a 2 month, for a 2 year pricing period, with the indicator pricing to the chair, no, it was not. And
Chair,
yeah,
to the chair to the assistant director, why did we not go with the lowest price indicated?
to the chair, we do know what the lowest price indication was, but having said that, because of market volatility, we did not make sense as a team to decide on a two-year price strip, knowing that even First Energy has not put out their prices for price to compare since 2024. If First Energy had a competitive price, yes, we would have made a decision or at least a suggestion to take a 24-month price strip.
So through the chair to the assistant director, then, the whole decision is being made on concerns about the volatility of the energy market and trying to secure a 1-year rate that's as low as possible. Is that correct?
Through the chair to the council person, it's not the whole decision, it's part of the decision, yes.
Through the chair to the director, what part of the decision am I not including? My mic is on.
Yeah.
Is that okay? Is that not? I mean, I don't know, I can hear me.
I don't,
I'm
They
trying to
can't.
make money. Oh.
Want this one?
yeah, just give your,
Is that better?
Yes.
Through the chair to the assistant director, what other factors were included in the decision other than price?
Through the chair to the council person, as mentioned before, one is the quality of the responses in terms of the ability to react to cities' requirements, also to being able to be flexible if needed to be able to refresh a price for the second year because we don't know what the pricing is, and not to get ourselves into a 2-year pricing that would be high that we cannot get out of. So be able to work with us on those options, to be able to provide the additional in-kind services. There were a whole variety of factors that the combined evaluation felt which was most comfortable to make a decision with the vendor that we select.
Okay. Through the chair to the director or assistant director, SOPEC used to be the Southeast Ohio Power something. and
Public
now-
Energy Council?
Public Energy Council. And now it's the Sustainable Ohio Public Energy. Through the chair to the director, are these the same organizations?
Through the chair to the council person, yes, they are DBA still as Southeast, but they've rebranded and renamed and filed themselves as Sustainable Ohio Public Energy Council.
Through the chair to the director, then how old is SOPEC as a continual entity?
Through the chair to the director, based on my best information, 2014 is when they were incorporated, so about 9 years.
9
Yeah.
years. And through the chair to the director, how long have they been Sustainable Ohio?
I want to say through the chair to the council person, maybe two plus years.
2+ years.
And I can confirm that again. So.
Through the chair to the director, it seems like from some people looking around that SOPEC doesn't usually offer a 100% versus 50% versus 0% renewable option, that they focus on 100% renewable. Through the chair to the assistant director, is this a new offer of theirs?
Through the chair to the council member, this was what we requested in RFP to have options. So we can't comment on whether or not it's a new offer for other customers, but this is what we had outlined in our RFP.
Through the chair to the director, then, can we make the lowest price here the default?
Through the chair to the council person, that's something we would have to evaluate, but I think the default as 100% REX has always been our product, even with the previous aggregations, and it is still price competitive compared to what we have.
But
We'll make it easier to be able to opt down. if
Through the
needed.
chair to the
So-
assistant director, 6.9% per kilowatt hour is a 16% increase over people's current prices of about 5.9. 6.5% is an 8% increase. So if a customer has the option to pay 16% more or 8% more, I would presume, I would think that I'm close to correct, that most people would choose an 8% increase over a 16% increase. So through the chair to the director, do we have the ability to make the lowest price the default?
So through the chair to the council member, I have up on the slide slide here that we've been 100% renewable as our default since 2013. That is our community choice aggregation policy.
I'm sorry, through the chair to the director, you're saying that Cleveland has been a 100% renewable energy city for 10 years?
No, so through the chair to the council member, the program for community choice aggregation for the city of Cleveland, the default has been 100% renewable energy credit as the default.
For the community choice, through the chair of the director, can you just explain quickly what the community choice electric aggregation means to the average person out there in the city?
Sure. So the community choice aggregation program is
This. So
this
for
program.
the last 10 years, then we've been on 100% renewable
That is correct, sir.
by default.
By default, correct.
So NOPEC was also 100% renewable.
Through the chair to the council person, we had to ask for that. They were not, and we were the first cities to have established that because we asked for it in our RFP. So that is our.
You said they were not.
They were not.
But
So
we were on NOPEC through the chair of the.
They were not prior to that. So through the chair to the council person, we want to reiterate our purchasing power and our policy, because being a large city, to be able to request and receive proposals that meet our requirements for policy and from a financing perspective.
Great.
So we had a special program with NOPEC that would provide us only the city of Cleveland from 2018 to 2020, 100% renewable energy credits. Then there were many cities who started requesting that because we were the first to do that. at a competitive
But,
price.
but through the chair, the assistant director, you just said that they were not providing 100% renewable. And to the chair, to the director, you just said that we have been.
So,
Am I confused?
To the chair, to the director, to the council person, I don't blame you. I can clearly mention 2013 to 2015, we had First Energy Solutions. We had different aggregators. We joined NOPEC only in 2018. So both statements are accurate. Since 2013, we've had 100% renewable energy credits backed community choice aggregation programs through different vendors. We had First Energy Solutions, we had Constellation, and then we had NOPEC.
Through the chair, this reminds me of the made with 100% beef claim, right? I worked at Wendy's. We used to have this box that said made with 100% beef. What that meant was the percentage of the hamburger that's beef was 100% beef. The rest of it wasn't beef. This sounds like we're saying that we've had 100% renewable energy aggregators, but that's not been the full source of our supply.
through the chair to the council member, so this, for the community choice aggregation program only, we've had 100% renewable energy credits backing that program as the default choice since 2013. The aggregator, the supplier and aggregator arrangements were with different entities. Since 2013, they have changed. However, the product that we have been going for as a part of the community choice aggregation program has been 100% renewable energy, backed by renewable energy credits.
So through the chair, or to the chair, you know, it seems like a lot of Cleveland ratepayers have probably been paying higher rates than they need to. The clear outline on this slide is that the 100% renewable costs about, you know, in a magnitude of twice or 8% more than the lowest price possible. And in a city where a lot of people are struggling to make ends meet, I think it behooves us to make the lowest price possible the default for Cleveland ratepayers, who a lot of times aren't working with the luxury of extra money in their budget. And it seems almost disrespectful for us to make budgetary decisions for our residents based on what we think is an important goal. I think that we should make the lowest price the default, and if they want to opt in to pay higher for renewable, great. We would welcome that with open arms, but I think that it is wrong for us to make the highest rate the default. And also, I think through the chair to the director, there's going to be a lot of questions out there in the public about why the rates are different based on the percentage of renewable and what they've become accustomed to paying versus what they're being asked to pay now. Because right now we're showing them an increase in payment based on renewable energy. And if you're saying that that's been the case for 10 years, then for 10 years we've been taking people to higher energy rates than they need to be paying. So, I mean, that just seems like the wrong thing for us to do to our residents. Through the chair to the director, when do we currently have a contract drafted for SOPEC?
Director?
Through the chair to the council person, SOPEC has provided us a template master service agreement that the city would utilize in order to customize.
And so through the chair to the director, if we approve this and you go to formalize the agreement and it goes from an indicative pricing to an actual fixed rate, will we have any time to react to that before you sign it?
Go ahead.
Through the chair to the council person, as the director indicated, there is a separate ordinance coming in that we would have to be introduced and heard. That is for the legal formalities of adoption of plan of operations and governance and joining SOPEC. By June 5th is when we expect all the hearings to be completed and come back to this committee. We can try to continue to get a better pricing at that time, but beyond June 5th, once the city administration has the authority, then I think we will be able to execute a contract, and we would likely have to execute on the day of the final refresh.
Can I get a point on that?
Yeah.
This contract and going with SOPEC isn't contingent on that, though, correct?
Go ahead.
Through the chair, could you repeat that question in terms of contingent on the pricing?
No, contingent on going with SOPEC. The next piece of legislation that's coming through is not contingent on us getting the rate and going with SOPEC.
So if I can,
Go
Chairman,
ahead.
to the Utilities Committee. So all of this is outlined in the Ohio Revised Code.
Right.
So the aggregator, as well as the Plan of Operations and Governance, has public hearing schedules. This ordinance allows us to continue to engage with this selected vendor into the next phase of public notice and public hearing on the Plan of Operation and Governance.
The question is, should the plan of operation of governance come before this piece of legislation?
It honestly, it can't, because the terms as outlined by the selected vendor are part of the public process.
And then what happens during the public process if we as a council have our public process, we hear something, whatever, something changes, right, during the public hearing process that we're not comfortable with, and then we're stuck because we've already given you the legislative authority to go through with this?
So through the chair to the director, to the chair, anything public commentary about this is the adoption of SOPEC's existing plan of operation and governance, which creates a more efficient process than the one we proposed last week, which was for the city to go by itself and have its own. So during that public hearing, if we have amendments or commentary, we will address the concerns brought up in those public hearings through the actual contracting phase itself.
But not through the legislation?
Through the director to the chairman, no, not through the legislation itself. However, we will be taking comments, as director had mentioned, when we introduce the legislation and hear public hearings about joining SOPEC and adopting their plan of operations and governance. And all amendments would be recorded. We're going to do our best to include them in the contract phase.
So then what happened between last week and this week, now that we're joining SOPEC as opposed to being out on our own?
So through to the chair, the efficiency of using the existing plan of operation and governance that SOPEC already has.
But last week, the reason for the delay in the RFP was because we wanted to go out on our own and be our own.
Correct.
And now, a week later, even though we're still way behind the eight ball here, a week later, you're saying we're not going to go out on our own, we're going to join SOPEC's COG or whatever it is.
I can mention that.
Go ahead.
No, Director?
So through to the chair, so SOPEC has, our last contract did not allow us to have access. We did not hold the plan of operation and governance. We did not have access to the data at a granular level. And can you?
Yeah, through the chair and thank you, Director. Last week we were very clear that we will come back as soon as possible because we are in active procurement, that we had our options, right? And right now I think that is why we could not comment any further last week, because now this legislation has been introduced. We are here to answer any questions and talk to you about the process. We've decided, and we had made as we had mentioned very clearly, the administration had made a decision, and the decision was done based on this selected vendor that we're now able to talk about. And so yes, did we have both options open? Correct. But now we feel that because we have the selected vendor, they have the plan of operations and governance, we are working with them to adopt their plan of operations and governance. That will be the most prudent thing to do going forward. And we knew that, we just didn't have time to be able to talk to you last week about it. So.
Go ahead, Councilman.
Okay. So can I add a comment?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
So the difference between the prior vendor that we had and this one we are selecting now is that SOPEC, we will be using their plan of operations and governance, but they will provide the information at a granular level, which was not the case before.
Okay. I did want to ask about SOPEC and NOPEC, so not changing subjects too much, but through the chair to the director, SOPEC as Southeast Ohio or Sustainable Ohio as a DBA, I believe, as you said, Assistant Director, what are they as an entity? Are they an LLC, a 501c3? I think I heard you, a public service organization. Like, how are they structured as a corporate entity?
Yeah, go ahead, mention that.
Do I have that correct?
Yes, and let me.
So SOPEC, through the chair to the council member, SOPEC is, I believe, what's called a council of governments, and I can confirm that.
A COG?
Yeah.
And are they, I'm sorry,
think that's
are
not
they
a
chartered in the state of Ohio? Are they
Yes.
an Ohio
Yes,
Council
there you
of
go.
Governance?
Through the chair to the council
category.
person, they are exactly that, the Regional Council of Governments under Chapter 167 of the ORC, the Ohio Revised Code.
They're a council of governance.
Regional Council of Governments.
Correct.
Regional council. Okay. And is NOPEC the same type of corporate entity as SOPEC?
Through the chair to our, that will be the best understanding, yes, to the council person, yes.
Okay. Through the chair, you said that 3 people responded to our RFP out of 13 prospective vendors that you sent it to. They were Energy Harbor, SOPEC, and NOPEC. Through the chair, the director, didn't NOPEC kick us out, or drop Cleveland
Director?
last summer?
Yeah, through the chair to
Or
the
last-
council member, NOPEC dropped all of its customers last
So
fall, I believe.
Through the chair of the director, then were they trying to go back and scoop those customers back up after dropping them? Like, is that?
Through the chair to the council person, they are legally not allowed with the city of Cleveland because they are not our aggregator. So they responded to an open competitive RFP to be able to be selected, if selected, through this process.
After kicking us out a few months ago.
Through the chair to the council person, it is an open, transparent RFP process. So if they are valid to be as a proposer, they proposed what they want.
Through the chair of the director, could SOPEC kick us off later if they decide they want to?
Through the chair to the council person, that's why we have to be more vigilant on both sides of the aisle. That's why we are also, the SOPEC has a smaller withdrawal notice. So as long as we're watching the prices, and that's why we're asking for a limited term, I think we just have to be more watchful and having our lessons learned.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, and just as a follow-up for the opt-down option that Councilman Harsh was talking about, in the city of Dayton, you have, in order to opt down, you have to contact AEP for some reason, which is another red flag for me. Anybody else have any other questions? Councilwoman Spencer.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I have a few more questions about SOPEC itself. So, first of all, it's a little concerning. On their website, the most recent information available about them, the most recent reports are from 2021. I don't know if there's any reason why there's not more recent information available about them.
Through the chair to the councilwoman, we've asked, and we will certainly be able to provide 2021 report. 2022 is forthcoming, and so that is something we can certainly provide. And we have some balance sheets information already just provided to us as requested, and we can share that.
And so through the chair to the councilman there, as a regional, they are certified, I believe that's the correct language, by the PUCO to be a aggregator. And so they have, right. So I'm saying, so the concerns about having the annual report, we can reach out and provide that to you.
Yes, absolutely.
And
So-
they will be here during the public hearings as well. SOPEC will be.
And then through the chair, it was mentioned that there are 26 communities in Ohio with SOPEC currently. And if I'm understanding their website correctly, first of all, I'm not seeing 26, but most of these are, they're not even cities, they're villages. Village of Somerset, Village of Trimble, Village of Shawnee, Village of Racine, et cetera. And then the only cities I'm seeing on here are City of Logan. I'm sorry, Logan, I have no idea where you are. There is City of Dayton, City of Gallipolis, City of Belpre. Sorry, Belpre, I have no idea where you are. City of Athens. So what I'm seeing here out of, if indeed there are 26 communities, the vast majority are villages, and the largest city served by SOPEC is Dayton. Is there any comment about that? I think what I'm driving at is the concern would be, how can an organization that's relatively small absorb a much larger community like effectively absorb a much larger community like Cleveland? I don't see a track record here.
Through the chair to the councilwoman, this again, the process and the organization information was thoroughly evaluated by the combined evaluation team. The response has been also that to be able to start a very dedicated office, if selected, at the city of Cleveland. And in addition, I think their work with the city of Athens and Dayton is what we were especially referring to, because we understand where we are in the terms of city of Cleveland's load. So we were looking at the city of Athens and city of Dayton as examples of how SOPEC has served and can serve the city of Cleveland and its residents. And SOPEC is also dedicated to starting a new office, if selected, in the city of Cleveland.
That's what I was going to ask you. Okay.
And then, Mr. Chair, so doing some quick homework here, our staff was able to provide, it looks like that through the PUCO filings that the prices per kilowatt hour, for example, let's see here, City of Athens was 10 cents per kilowatt hour, Dayton 9.6 cents, almost 9.7 cents per kilowatt hour. So how, again, that's the kind of pricing that's being provided for other SOPEC communities. How are we getting to the 6.58 up to 6.96 cents per kilowatt hour for Cleveland?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, two reasons. One, load. Two, maybe you may call it, jurisprudence, but, just a prudence of waiting sometimes is kind of paying off because the markets are much more volatile earlier in the year. I know other communities that are paying 7 or 8 cents, much smaller than us. Those decisions were made in January and February because there was still a lot of market volatility. I've been monitoring the markets, and we see that the pricing, at least for the year, we only have certainty about the next year. The prices have come down, and so that is why we're also seeing, even though we're getting into summer, we are seeing lower prices plus the increase in load. We have about 45 to 50,000 customers to provide to the load.
Correct.
Mr. Chair, if I can, I want to move a little bit into the communications side of the conversation. We have some advantage here as council members. We're on the Utilities Committee. We have the chance to participate in in-depth discussions. I think we had a several hours long discussion last week. We're in another lengthy but important discussion a day. There will be more discussions to come. Most of our residents, right, they're just not going to have the time or the inclination to do this kind of homework, have this level of understanding. It's just, it's kind of overwhelming, right? We're here because it's our job and we're public servants to understand this. I am really concerned still about communication. And specifically, I think I'm at a point where I know there's a communications plan, but I think I'm at the point where I would be recommending, if not asking the administration to produce a statement from the administration saying exactly what happened here. When people, again, when we hit, and I know we're here to listen, there's a piece of legislation in front of us and it's about SOPEC, and I know that's why we're here. But it's been keeping me up at night all week, right? The question of when people start getting their bills in June, and there'll be a lot of angry people. And I'm looking for a statement from the mayor about this. I think that's appropriate. I think there should be something that clearly communicates to our residents who was in the driver's seat on this.
Well, I've made no qualms about it. I've said it for a year now, right? The administration dropped the ball on this. So, but unfortunately, we are where we are. So we're dealing with it now. And if you can get the mayor to admit that, you're a better council person than I am. I highly doubt the administration is going to take credit for not getting this out sooner, but all we can do is ask. But once this passes, and it's a good thing for our residents, rest believe that the administration will then take credit for it. Councilman Slife? Were you done?
Just a quick point of clarification. As we've been discussing, the rates are, I want to make sure we understand or are conveying the difference between bill date and the month that the rates are in effect. So if the rates are in effect for June and July, we're talking about people's July and August bills. Is the one that is due in July the one that is due in August? That is the way. So if this is going into effect, these higher rates in June, but the bill that we're all about to receive is for May, which will be due in June. So when I want to, I'm getting nods for the
Well,
record.
I would like to answer
Go
that.
go ahead.
Through the chair to the council person, I will try to clarify as much as possible, and of course, director of utilities. But right, it's fairly straightforward in a way, right? May, for instance, let's say your meter cycle, it's called a meter cycle. The meter is read, let's say on June 25th. The bill is produced right after, and so what First Energy is saying, not us. What First Energy is saying is, for those people in those billing cycles, it's when that for the June period mostly is when the rates would start going up. So the first set of customers in the First Energy territory in the city of Cleveland start, I would say, give or take May 27th. So from May 27th to June 26th, from June 27th to July 26th, for those 2 months is what I think we are trying to estimate would be the higher prices. The bill come out right a day or two after the meter is read.
Okay.
Did that help you?
That's helpful, and just to make sure I understand process, so I don't know if my meter is going to be read on the 27th or the 28th. You know, that's just, I'm sure there's a lot of there's a lot of externalities there. But if people are wanting to go shopping privately, they have to get into that contract, which will take place for the next meter reading. So essentially, we're looking at like the 27th is the date by which you would have to be under a new provider if you don't want the 12.4 cent per hour rate to kick in. Is that correct?
Through the chair to the council person, that is correct. Usually First Energy has about 12 days, give or take, before the meter read cycle kicks in for them to have made a decision. And in some cases, if they have an existing supplier, as pointed before, they want that customer to be with the 1 or 2 billing cycles. If they don't have any supplier, then it's only 12 days, and they can start with a new supplier.
Okay, so May reading for the June and July cycles, with those bills being due in July and August. Yes, okay, thank you.
To the chair to council person, yes. That's a good approximation.
All right, and then I have one last question. When do you anticipate the rate to be locked in?
So through the chair, to the chair, right after the refresh in mid-June, timing-wise, Assistant Director?
Through the chair to the director, that is accurate. Depending on the other ordinances that is approved, we have a contract in place by early to mid-June. We are doing everything possible. As soon as the contract, in terms of the terms and the plan of operations, are all in place, then we will ask for a price refresh and do it as soon as we can.
Okay.
So June 5th is the date that we anticipate that we would receive approval for both this and the new ordinance we're going to introduce for the plan of operations. As soon as it is done, we'll do our very best to get a contract in place after that. So, the chair, early to mid-June. I'm just saying mid-June to be safe.
All right. Councilman, we got to wrap this up.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm looking at a SOPEC Dayton letter from their building. And in small print in the middle of the page, it says individual customers have the option to select a 24-month non-renewable product. And my question goes back to the director. Are we able to start with opting people into the lowest rate they have available and let them opt into the renewable? Is that an option we can give our residents?
Director?
So we'd like to wait until the the plan of operation and governance public hearings next week and getting feedback on making a final determination on that question.
Okay, feedback from who? Through the chair?
So there are it's through the chair to the council member, there are 2 public hearings that will be estimated on May 31st and June 1st.
I'll let you know where they're.
I see. May 31st to June 1st?
Set it out.
Yes,
Okay.
through the chair to the council member, that will be published in the Plain Dealer on May 20th.
I'll also send out
I see.
a notice to all council members regarding it.
Okay.
All right, Councilwoman Spencer, to wrap us up.
Thanks. I have a One more question, Mr. Chair, and then I'd like to offer an amendment. The question is, I apologize, can we please repeat what the response to Councilman Slife's question about the billing cycle dates? I'm sorry, I did not get that quickly enough.
Through the chair to the Councilwoman, yes. So normally, First Energy has a number of meter read dates, as they call it, right, about every day, because we have so many customers. So assuming that your meter read, for instance, your meter cycle starts on May 27th, assuming it's 1 month, it's usually 28, 29, 30 days. So May 27th to June 26th. So the meter is read on June 26th. And so what First Energy is saying is, for the May 27th to the June 26th is that month, and that is your billing month. And so the bill that will be produced is for your consumption between May 27th and June 26th, as one example. And normally May 27th is usually the first set of meter reads for the June cycle. The June cycle, even though they call June, starts a few days earlier in the month of May. And likewise, then your next billing cycle would start from June 26th to the next July 25th, if that's accurate.
Okay, so to make sure we understand, for all First Energy customers, the earliest expected meter read date for a June billing cycle would be May 27th?
To the chair, to the Councilwoman, the start of the billing cycle would be May 27th, correct. The bill can be expected in June 26th or June 27th when that period is completed, and then the bill for the consumption when the meter is read in June for June 26th.
And through the chair to the Councilwoman, confirming with First Energy directly would be the best way for that date of your billing cycle. It's on your bill. That date is on your bill.
Thank you, Director.
Okay, but as far as we know, through our chair, is that billing cycle start date the same for every customer, or it varies depending on your meter read date?
Through the chair to the Councilwoman, it varies across the whole month. Every customer has a different billing cycle, and as the director pointed out, if you don't find it on your bill, you would have to call First Energy to find out when your meter is normally read.
Correct.
However, the earliest billing cycle start date that would be affected by the new pricing would be May 27th. Is that
To the
accurate?
chair to the Councilwoman, that is accurate.
Okay. All right. Mr. Chair, I think we should offer an amendment here, and the amendment would be to the end of the clause in the ordinance, just adding the words "with legislative authority." So it would be with 2 one-year options to renew, exercisable by the Director of Finance and/or Public Utilities, with legislative authority is the proposed amendment.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Do we have discussion? All in favor, just say aye.
Aye.
All right. All right, seeing no other questions, 6:30.
Mr. Chairman, Mr.
Yes.
Chairman,
Yes, sir.
can you put me down as an abstention for 631?
Okay. Well, Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll on 6/31/2023? Yes.
Spencer,
Yes.
Bishop,
Abstention.
Harsh,
Yes.
Kelly,
All right, thank you. With that, ordinance number 6/31/2023 as amended stands approved. Thank you very much. This concludes this Utilities Committee for May 18th. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair and Councilwoman.
You're welcome.
Thank you, committee members.
I have a question.